provide you with the lowest per GB rates, night or day. SLT 4G, driving you ever forward.
Path to stability. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa insists on a general election since it's the only remedy to a destabilized democracy. Pushed back. The meeting between President Maithripala Sirisena and the United National Front, set for today, postponed until tomorrow. Back from the dead. The party of ex-LTT cadres denounced the statement by Karuna Amman about Pottu Amman's existence. Parade of protest. The vehicle parade Drive for Justice of the United National Front concludes in Mahiyanganaya. G20 talks. China and the United States finally agree on a ceasefire in their bitter trade war.
බයික් එකක් ගත්තොත් ෆෝන් එකක්. ඔව්, තෝරාගත් යමහා බයික් මාදිලි සඳහා රුපියල් 40000ක් දක්වා වටිනා ස්මාර්ට් ෆෝන් එකක් නොමිලේ. ඉක්මන් කරන්න නොවැම්බර් 30 දක්වා පමණයි. කොන්දේසි සහිතයි. අමතන්න 0117 696 AMW තින් පමණයි.
Good evening. Joining you on First at 9 on Other Derana 24/7 Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Indivari Amwatta. As Sri Lanka's political crisis remains unresolved, statements were made and talks have been held. We begin with your top story tonight. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa insists that the only way to restore stability to a destabilized democracy is a general election. While making a special statement at the Prime Minister's office today, Premier Rajapaksa called on all who respect democracy to give careful thought to these matters.
The Sri Lankan head of state is an executive president directly elected by the people. It has been clearly stated in the Supreme Court determination on the 19th Amendment, the power that the sovereign people have vested in the president cannot be removed without the two-thirds majority in parliament and a referendum. Even though it is claimed that the president's power to dissolve parliament that had been provided for in the Article 70 subsection 1 have been removed, what has actually happened is that those provisions have been taken to another part of the Constitution. The new provision that has been introduced to the Constitution in the form of Article 33 subsection 2C has not been made subject to Article 70 subsection 1 as amended by the 19th Amendment either. After the 19th Amendment, parliamentary conventions have been preserved in our Constitution through Article 33 subsection 2C. If we ignore that article and accept only Article 70 subsection 1 as amended by the 19th Amendment, then we will be faced with a situation where there is absolutely no provision in the Constitution to dissolve Parliament in the event the government is defeated at a vote on the budget, the statement of government policy, or a motion of no confidence is passed against the government. Such a situation is completely contrary to parliamentary tradition. If even the ceremonial heads of state in countries with parliamentary forms of government can dissolve parliament and call for fresh elections at their discretion when the circumstances so require, how logical is it to say that the President of Sri Lanka, who is vested with the executive power of the state on behalf of the sovereign people, cannot dissolve parliament no matter what happens in the country? Since the dissolution of parliament and the holding of fresh elections will have implications for the person ordering such an action as well, no head of state will take such a decision lightly. Such a decision will be made only in serious situations. The only way to restore stability to a destabilized democracy will be through a general election. According to our Constitution, sovereignty is vested in the people and not in the parliament. The manner in which the people exercise their sovereignty is through the franchise. I invite all those who respect democracy to give careful thought to these matters.
A group identifying themselves as a political party comprised of ex-LTT cadres today moved to respond to the statement made by former Minister venerable Muralitharan alias Karuna Amman, who claimed that Shanmugalingam Sivashankar alias Pottu Amman currently in hiding in Norway. Convening a media briefing today, its leader K. Tulasi said that the statement is in fact false.
A local newspaper reported what it called as a statement made by former Minister Vinayagamurthy Muralidharan, alias Karuna Amman, claiming that the head of the LTTE intelligence unit Shanmugalingam Shivashankar, alias Pottu Amman, is alive and is hiding in Norway. Convening a media briefing, a group identifying themselves as a political party comprised of former LTT cadres today, however, rejected the claim, saying that the statement made by the former minister carries no truth and that it is made to gain political mileage.
It was not easy for Pottu Amman to survive when he was being held by the military during the last days of the war. Many of the leaders of the LTT were killed in the battlefields during the last days of the war. Some have begun to give life to the dead these days to gain political benefits from the current political situation in the country.
Well, the much-anticipated meeting between President Maithripala Sirisena and representatives of the United National Front is postponed to 8 p.m. tomorrow. Parliamentarian Mano Ganesan confirmed the latest development to Ada Derana today. The decision to hold the meeting today was agreed upon following discussions between the two parties last Friday. And the vehicular parade Drive for Justice, worked off by the United National Party under the theme Defeat the Constitutional Conspiracy by Maithripala and Mahinda, concluded at the Mahayangane this evening. The parade commenced yesterday in Colombo and ended the day in Dondra Head.
The vehicle parade organised by the UNP commenced under the command of its leader Ranil Wickramasinghe at the Vihara Mahadevi Park in Colombo yesterday. They passed Kalutara, Gaul, Mathara along Gaul Road and concluded their first day at Dondra. Several party leaders also addressed the people.
They boasted that they won't allow the rupee to depreciate if they come to power, but the rupee has depreciated to 183 today. When we question, they say it cannot be controlled easily. They reduced the price of fuel using our formula and are trying to take credit. It was us who reduced the price. We told you that we will reduce the fuel prices according to prices in the global market. A barrel of crude, which was at $80 per barrel, had come down to $58 a barrel today. I think the price should be reduced further than 5 rupees. We take over the government again on next Wednesday and give you that concession.
The parade set off on its second and final day from Tangol this morning. The vehicle parade reached the town of Tissa Maharama by noon and parliamentarians addressed the people.
This is an unending struggle. Sajid Premadasa is slowly making his journey. What you people requested will be realized within 2 or 3 days.
The parade, dubbed Drive for Justice, then began its journey towards Mahayangane.
And UNP Deputy Leader, Parliamentarian Sajid Premadasa requests President Maithripala Sirisena to resolve the current political turmoil without delay. The parliamentarian made this remark addressing a party membership drive held in Gampaha yesterday.
The current destructive situation can only be changed by the person who created it. That is, by the President himself. I request the President on behalf of the people of this country to reverse all illegal actions which took place in the country since the 26th of October. It is then that we could overcome this situation. Some question us whether we are afraid of an election. We will establish government legally and let you vote freely. The 9th of January is nearing. Hold a presidential election. We are ready. The candidate and our alliance are ready for it.
Parliamentarian Venerable Aturali Ratanathera echoes the sentiments voiced by the governing party regarding the majority in Parliament. Addressing an event held in Colombo today, Venerable Ratanathera said that ensuring the support of 113 parliamentarians in Parliament does not necessarily represent the political consensus of the general public.
The policy statement Sustainable National Programme to Build the Country was handed over to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa by Venerable Aturali Ratanathera today. Former Minister Basil Rajapaksa and Minister Udayagamman Pilla were also present at the event held in Sadham Sevana Temple in Rajagiriya. Parliamentarian Vasudeva Senanayake, who left his ministerial portfolio recently, was also seen attending the event.
I especially invited former Minister Basil Rajpaksha today. During the previous government, myself and him had a political fight. I am against the previous government because the country kept losing every day when it was in power. They planned to sell 250,000 acres of land from Trincomalee to Manor to foreign companies. They were also going to establish an army camp, but not one that belongs to the Sri Lankan army. It's the Indian High Commissioner and Japanese ambassador who were in the committee regarding this army camp. We also came up with suitable fertilizers for the country. But the government closed down all the companies which achieved these results even without considering results of our successful experiments. The government must soon go home. When I had these discussions with former Minister Basil Rajpaksha, he contributed to what I said. But when I had the same discussion with former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, he used to intently listen to what I had to say but never acted on it. The President is the supreme power of the people and not just an individual. He made a decision to appoint a new Prime Minister and a new cabinet. As soon as he came into power, he made Ranil Wickremesinghe the Prime Minister by using supreme power vested in him by the people. Although there is a two-thirds majority in the Parliament, that number doesn't represent the public's opinion in the country. It is the same situation here. Although they have a 113 majority in Parliament, that does not represent the majority of the country.
රටේ ජනතාව තුල පරමාධිපත්‍යයක් මේ ආණ්ඩුවට නැහැ.
The government today levelled grave accusations against R. Paskaralingam, who was an advisor to the former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, alleging that Paskaralingam paid money funded the terror group LTTE. Addressing a media briefing held at the Premier's office today, Minister of International Trade and Investment Promotion Bandula Gunawardena accused that Paskaralingam paid the terrorists out of the Treasury during his tenure as the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance in 1989.
A political discussion between myself and former State Minister Eran Wickramaratne was telecast yesterday, where he made various false allegations. One of his claims was that during Mahinda Rajpaksha's tenure as President, he paid and bought the support of the LTTE, and that these incidents were later proven. I would like to show you a document which shows how former Secretary to the Ministry of Finance R. Paskaralingam had, in 1989, paid 1,125 rupees to the LTTE, claiming that these were confidential and emergency expenses. You can file a complaint against me if this is a counterfeit document. I challenge Eran Wickremesinghe to prove that Prime Minister Mahinda Rajpaksha paid any money to the LTTE. Wasn't it misuse of public funds when the former Finance Minister used a secret bank account under Litrogas to pay his political supporters? Why is it that he is not arrested yet? We ask the President to directly be involved in the matter in his capacity as the Minister of Defence. The President would never issue another Gazette notification nullifying his Gazette notification on the dissolution of Parliament. Whether we like it or not, we will have to accept whatever the court says.
General Secretary of the JVP Tilvin Silva is curious of the confidential talks Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa had with leader of the UNP Ranil Wickremesinghe at the parliamentary complex recently. Addressing a media briefing held today, Silva said that content of the discussion should be made public.
The country doesn't have a budget yet. The ministries will not have money in January next year and thus will not be able to pay the salaries for the government employees. The country is facing a severe collapse. The President, Mahinda Rajpaksha, and his clan are the only group of people who accepts the premiership of Mahinda Rajpaksha. No one in the Commonwealth and no one in the SAARC, except for the Maldives, accept the premiership of Mahinda. Recently, Mahinda Rajpaksha and Ranil Wickremesinghe held a confidential meeting at the parliamentary complex. What do they have to discuss so secretly? None of them told the media what they discussed. It is the police who should reveal the reasons behind it, not us.
Representatives of the National Alliance for Lawyers Association, Attorney-at-Law Major Charitha Siriwardana, is of the view that the present situation of the country warrants an immediate election. Speaking at a media briefing held today, he went on to say that in the event if motions passed within Parliament are assumed valid, it still won't resolve the current problems of the country.
Now the present political situation or climate in this country warrants a general election immediately. Even for a moment, if we assume that these motions and resolutions are valid, still this won't solve the current problem, because Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe was removed by His Excellency the President, not because he lacked the number of heads in Parliament, but because of very serious allegations against him. Now the TNA has come forward to help the UNP, and the UNP apparently has agreed to their demands to go ahead with the dangerous proposed constitution, to do away with the PTI, jeopardizing national security, then release of political prisoners. Are these political prisoners? Political prisoners are innocent people who have been arrested in a dictatorship. We never had a dictatorship in this country. These are confirmed LTT suspects. This amounts to acceptance of a de jure separate government in the Northeast. A very dangerous situation. The President must inquire into this immediately and take legal action against those responsible with the result of the presidential election. If Mr. Maithripala Sirisena reverts back as the President, we are back to square one, because he will not appoint Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Prime Minister. It is customary for Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe to lose election.
Minister of National Integration Vasudeva Nanahara, meanwhile, is of the view that the expected Supreme Court decision on the dissolution of Parliament will not become a hindrance for the government to move forward. Addressing a rally held in the area of Kuruvitta in Ratnapura today, the minister said that the government will forge ahead regardless of what the court's decision may be. Meanwhile, several other politicians of the government also voiced their opinion on the current political impasse in the country.
Even if the court delivers its verdict against the dissolution of Parliament, we will continue to govern, irrespective of the views against the dissolution. According to them, it's the dissolution that is wrong, so we will continue to govern. We will bring a vote on account, and in that we will include the allocations for the development projects for each and every province. We will then see how the provincial councillors vote against this. The 19th Amendment to the Constitution had two aims: to remove executive powers from the President and vest them with Ranil Wickremesinghe, and then to chase away the Rajapaksa regime. By yesterday, Ranil Wickremesinghe had promised the TNA to give anything they want in return for help to become Prime Minister. That is why the TNA is willing to establish a government with them. Former Prime Minister Wickremesinghe is the first defendant of the bond scam. We said that if we come to power, Wickremesinghe will be handcuffed within 72 hours. We haven't completed our government yet, but the moment the government kicks into force, Ranil Wickremesinghe will be arrested. We will neither contest from the Flower Bud nor from the United National Party. We will contest from the SLFP. I believe that the SLFP should contest separately, and so should the SLPP. So then we can get together and establish a government.
Meanwhile, various protests were staged across the island against the Speaker's conduct while demanding an immediate election. Petitions were also signed demanding a general election in various parts of the country.
Watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
On to your business news. Senior Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, says that any government needs to gradually reduce its borrowings in order to maintain a sound monetary policy. Dr. Veerasinghe elaborated on the topic while addressing a forum on Sri Lanka's economic challenges ahead of year 2019 in Colombo recently.
But in terms of monetary policy, we are very clear, even with all fiscal challenges for fiscal dominance for all 35 years up until 2018-19. From average inflation 12%, now we have been able to bring down last 10 years average inflation is 5%. There's some success in terms of monetary policy. That is the central bank effort to bring down the inflation. That's our key objective. So how we have been doing that is basically we have revised our monetary policy framework. We are now moving towards from monetary targeting into inflation targeting, and that has brought in more anchoring inflation expectations. And as a result, inflation now is less than 4%. Even 0.1 inflation last month was I think less than 1%. I mean, it's not sufficient to maintain a sustainable long-term growth. So we can do our part to maintain low and stable inflation around 4% to 5%, even next 10 years. I think we have now framework to do that and deliver that inflation objective. But the question is the growth. This 3 to 4% growth is not sufficient, is not sustainable for us to improve our debt dynamics. Because our debt is 80% of GDP. And for debt to bring down the 80% to 60%, as stated by all the governments, you need few things. One is you need to bring down the fiscal deficits. Because if you deficits mean every year you add new debt. At least you need to gradually bring down the amount that government will have to borrow year after year. That's the one thing. Second one is you need to increase your income. So whole country, government will have, GDP will have to go up. So GDP growth will have to be not 3-4%, it will have to be at least 5 to 6%. That's the second factor that will improve debt dynamics. That will bring down the debt to GDP ratio. One other factor is we have to achieve 5 to 6% GDP growth. Other one is the real interest rates. Third factor, how you can bring down the debt to debt dynamics. Other one is the primary budget deficit. Not only budget deficit, government will have to bring down the primary surplus. That is one of the objectives of the IMF program is to deliver primary surplus. Take out the interest payment. That's beyond anyone's control. But government revenue and expenditure stands. The interest payment will have to generate surplus. Then only your debt dynamics will improve.
In international business, Russian oil output stood at 11.37 million barrels per day in November, down from the post-Soviet record high of 11.41 million barrels per day that it reached in October. In tons, oil output reached 46 million versus 48 million in October. The fall in Russian output mirrored a drop in production from the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, which, according to a Reuters survey, fell in November from a 2-year high. Major oil producers inside OPEC and beyond the organization are concerned about a possible glut of oil driving down prices and are exploring the possibility of reining in output. Brent crude fell below $59 a barrel this week from as high as $85 in October. OPEC members and their allies are expected to decide on steps to rebalance the oil market when they meet in Vienna on the 6th and 7th of December. And back in Colombo, analysts say that local investors have become reactive in the market over the previous 2 working days and will remain active in the coming week or so. The ASPI gained 1.5%, mainly due to price gains in counters such as John Keel's Holdings, Commercial Bank and Nestle Lanka over the previous week. The S&P SL20 index also increased by 2.4%, while a slight appreciation of the rupee was recorded. We have Amanda Lukugamage from First Capital Holdings for a detailed report of your forecast for the next 5 days.
In the bond market, most participants are likely to be on the sideline until prevailing liquidity shortage in the market is improved. Despite the continuous weakening in rupee during the last couple of weeks, a slight appreciation was witnessed in the last 2 market days, with USD LKR spot rate closing the day at 179.20, strengthening from the lowest of 181. Equity market experienced a strong uptrend throughout the week despite the foreign outflow from the market. Friday market closed at week's high of 6,019 points, gaining 27 points. We believe local investors have reactivated in the market amidst attractive valuations. Prevailing foreign selling pressure is likely to get absorbed with the improving confidence levels of the market participants.
Well, Well, in your news overseas, after high-stake talks in Argentina between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping, China and the United States agreed for a ceasefire in their bitter trade war. At a post-G20 summit meeting in Buenos Aires, Trump agreed not to boost tariffs on $200 billion of Chinese goods from 10% to 25% on 1st January. China, meanwhile, said that the two sides agreed to open up their markets. This dispute unnerved global financial markets and weighed on the world economy.
The announcement on trade ceasefire between China and United States came after presidents of the two nations sat down with their aides for a working dinner at the end of G20 summit in Buenos Aires. This was widely seen as the most important meeting of US and Chinese leaders in years, as financial markets will take their lead from results of the talks. US President Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping accordingly agreed to hold new trade tariffs for 90 days to allow for further discussions to resolve their disagreements. Chinese President Xi had told Trump that it is only through cooperation that United States and China would serve the interests of peace and prosperity. Trump was optimistic at the start of the meeting.
The relationship is very special, the relationship that I have with President Xi. I think that is going to be a very primary reason why we'll probably ending up getting something that will be good for China and good for the United States.
Both sides imposed tariffs on billions of dollars worth of goods. The US has hit $250 billion worth of Chinese goods with tariffs since July, and China has retaliated by imposing duties on $110 billion of US products. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump cancelled a planned meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin at the G20 summit, citing Russia's military tensions with Ukraine. In response, Putin said that it was regrettable he could not hold a full-scale meeting with the US president. However, the two had a brief meeting on the sidelines of the summit on Friday.
Still in international news, French President Emmanuel Macron is chairing an urgent security meeting following a day of riots by hundreds of anti-government protesters. A government spokesperson said a state of emergency could be imposed to tackle the unrest. Protesters have scaled the central Paris as clashes with riot police continued during a third weekend of Yellow Vest rallies. At least 110 people have been injured, including 17 members of the security forces, and 270 arrests were made so far. Protests over fuel tax have now grown into general anger at higher living costs. At least 75,000 people had turned out across France for the latest Yellow Vest rallies. The movement has grown via social media to encompass rising anger at high taxes and living costs and broader criticism of President Macron's economic policies. We take a short break. We'll return with the sports news on First at 9.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
On to your weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Rainy conditions are expected to enhance to some extent over the island in the next few days. Showers or thunder showers thereby are expected in the northern, eastern, north, central and over provinces with fairly heavy falls of about 75 millimeters tomorrow. Galle and Mathura districts will also see some showers during the next few days. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in central, Sabaragamu and western provinces during the morning hours of tomorrow. And now here's a look at your city-by-city weather forecast for the next 24 hours. And that's all on First and 9. But before we leave you, we'd like to leave you with some visuals. And tonight we take you to Sakalobra Beach in Majorca, which is renowned as one of the most famous tourist attractions in Spain. Sacalobra is a stunning set of two beaches tucked in among steep rocky cliffs and divided by the Torrent de Paris, also known as River George, on the northwest coast of the island. Enjoy these visuals. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.